The following is a very interesting story for you that looks back on the remarkable Concorde Supersonic Jet. What a plane that was. But before getting started on that part of the story, I want to go back in time just for a few seconds. In my lifetime, flying has changed. Some say for the better, and some say not so much for the better. Nowadays, we get there much faster than we did in the past, because in the past it was mostly prop planes. Now we fly on jets all over the world. Flying is not what it used to be to most of us. No longer is it truly luxurious. In the olden days, we actually, can you believe this, got dressed up to go on a plane because it was a very special occasion. I guess that shows you my age a little bit, doesn't it? But it's really not a luxurious experience anymore. Most of us feel these days that we're like flying in a cattle car. But there is comfort available to those who can afford first class. After the development of this aircraft jointly by British Airways and Air France, the Concorde went into service in 1976. What a gorgeous looking plane. Would you agree with me? It was a beauty. A sleek delta wing jet with a needle nose would be making a record-breaking transatlantic trip in about 3.5 hours. 20 of these planes were built. Flight speed over 1,350 miles per hour, greater than Mach 2. Twice the speed of sound. Seating capacity on board was for 100, and in my opinion, very fortunate passengers. Of all the planes in the air, the Concorde became the symbol of both speed and luxury. This extraordinary plane that flew for many years was a privilege, and an expensive privilege. A round trip from New York City to London would set back passengers $12,000. In my opinion, this still remains one of the most amazing planes that was ever built. And all those people that paid the $12,000, I'm sure that they all felt every penny was worth it. The Concorde made its last commercial passenger flight in October 2003 between New York Kennedy and London's Heathrow Airport. There were celebrities on board, along with one couple who paid a whopping $60,000 for the privilege of being on that final and very historic flight. No wonder that couple paid such a huge price. This was the most technologically advanced plane at the time, and don't forget about its luxurious reputation. The weather was beautiful on most of the days that the Concorde took off between London and New York, New York and London, Paris and New York, New York and Paris. But there was one fateful day for this absolutely magnificent piece of airline technology. The weather was beautiful that day. The Concorde, such an incredible plane. I don't know why there is something about that plane that I just thought was so special. And it did have a perfect safety record. But on a fateful day in July 2000, that record would be shattered, causing the beginning of the end of this remarkable commercial jet. Here's what happened. The Concorde begins its takeoff down the runway on that fateful day in July 2000 at Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris. when it suddenly hits a piece of metal. This caused a tire to burst, which in turn ruptured, the flying debris ruptured and ignited the fuel tank. The plane continued on down the runway and managed to get up in the air before it exploded 5 miles away from the runway, killing all 190 people on board, as well as 4 innocent souls on the ground. Sadly, this crash brought, I don't know, I think this was the beginning and the end of that incredible aircraft. The piece of metal causing the crash had fallen off during the takeoff of the previous plane, a Continental Airlines DC-10. Maintenance on that plane had not followed correct procedures for replacing the part that caused this horrific crash. The piece of metal was supposed to be stainless steel, but it was not. Continental Airlines did take the blame, but obviously it was way too late. Such a sad ending to that flight. The Concorde Supersonic Jet was permanently grounded in May 2003. However, the fascination with the Concorde continued, and with me, I'm still fascinated by it to this day. But something amazing happened when British Airways and Air France auctioned off spare parts of their planes. Many of these objects sold for significantly more than the asking price. For instance, a blanket with a price tag of $100 sold for a whopping $2,000. A door fetched a huge price of $33,000, and a needle nose fetched a price of $550,000. Here we are in 2022, almost 20 years since that magnificent Concorde Supersonic Jet took off for the last time and was taken out of service. However, it is nice to know that there are developments on the horizon. Virgin Galactic in 2020 announced its plans to develop a supersonic passenger plane that will travel at 3 times the speed of sound. And United Airlines has announced a joint venture with Boom Supersonic to develop a Concorde-like plane with initial flight trials to begin in 2026. Nostalgically, I look back on the Concorde and remember that sleek supersonic jet beckoned me, and how I missed my chance to take a flight on this amazing plane. I had a trip planned to London, and I was actually booked on the Concorde between Kennedy and London. And I was excited beyond excited. But guess what? The business trip got canceled, and I never again had a chance to fly on this flight. And I just so regret to this day I didn't make it a priority, because my fascination with this amazing plane, incredible plane, continues to this day. To take off, I just can't imagine what it would be like to take off and break the sound barrier. How incredible would that be? And a totally and completely unforgettable experience that would have been, don't you think? But anyway, that ends my tribute to one of the world's greatest planes, technologically, luxuriously, and beautifully in terms of its design. It was something special, and it'll be interesting to see what the new supersonic jets look like, and I wonder if they'll have the same lure and excitement that was brought to all the passengers that had the privilege and the great pleasure of traveling on the one and only Concorde Supersonic Jet plane.